The fact that there's something very strange about the Beatle Paul. The fact that the Beatle Paul may be dead.
Someone I'd loved for a long time, I found out had betrayed me immensely, and I don't mean infidelity or anything like that, like beyond belief. People don't want to know what the truth is because they could never ever handle it. They would be too devastated.
I have protected my husband. I know everything and I know the truth. When I have a box of evidence that is going to a certain person should anything happen to me, I'm not allowed to talk about it because it's a criminal act. You have no idea what's going on.
I just got back from the States on Wednesday with Ringo, and we got off the plane and suddenly this fella is shoving microphones in your mouth, and I go, what is it? Just didn't know what was going on at all, you know. Saying Paul's dead, and one fellow was saying, I've got an interview with Paul this afternoon, can you confirm if he's dead or not? What? You know, you're going to talk to him this afternoon, don't be asking me if he's dead now, you're stupid, you know.
No, it's a joke, isn't it? I mean, Paul isn't dead, you know, and if he was, we would have told you.
This legend went that Paul had been killed in an automobile crash.
Paul had died, maybe a year or two previously, and that they had a substitute playing Paul.
I had been the first one to write about this, and a lot of people mistakenly thought that I started the rumor, that it was me making it up, not recognizing that I was just writing a story as a journalist. This guy, his name was D'Artagnan Brown, Dart Brown, a friend of mine who was also an editor on the school paper, and he thinks that's where he got it, from some musicians passing through town.
Supposedly, according to the people who are believing this rumor, Paul McCartney died in an automobile crash after completing a session in making the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. He took off in a car, blew his mind out in a car, right? And that's what the lyric's supposed to mean, according to the people who are promulgating the rumor. And he was killed at that time. Not knowing what to do and not wishing to smash the British economy, a double was quickly found, and since then has been impersonating Paul McCartney. And so far as voice is concerned, the Beatles themselves, the three remaining ones, have been. And of course, to them, it is evident in such lyrics as in Come Together, one and one or three.
I wonder who just got married. How do they account for that? Yeah.
Well, you've known Paul even before the Beatles were a success.
Yeah, but who just got married? I mean, if you're supposed to die in 1966, who just got married in 1969?
Well, that's supposedly William Campbell.
But then he couldn't be married under the name of Paul McCartney. You know. Another thing, if you want to prove whether he's dead or not, go down to the records office at Somerset House, you know.
Oh, but you see,
they've all got to be registered there.
These people have got answers for everything, like the British government is behind this.
Well, you know. There's not then they'll have answers for anything I say too, you know.
When Linda and Paul married in March 1969, Jay Marks congratulated Paul with a message: "Congratulations, whoever you are."
Paul McCartney couldn't die without the world knowing it.
Bettina Crispin's paternity suit claimed a stand-in was sent to Paul McCartney in 1983 for a blood test.
As any parent can testify, the lifestyle of the Beatles has always been somewhat different. And if you believe current rumor, their style of revealing Paul McCartney's alleged death is being carried out with singular taste.
I kind of heard rumors about this.
And let's go on to the double album, the white-covered album. On the collage inside, on the back of which are the lyrics, people are saying that passport photo is not Paul, but the guy who has replaced him, and that was a picture of a William Campbell, who was the winner of the look-alike contest. Now, you probably know what that photo is. What is that?
I don't know which photograph you're talking about. Which passport photo?
It's a picture of somebody who looks very much like Paul, with a mustache. It looks like a passport photo.
With glasses on?
Yes.
With their glasses on, huh? It's a funny story. We were in Sweden years and years ago. And 4 of us went down into the restaurant to eat, and Paul stayed upstairs, you know. And then he came into the restaurant, well, he didn't come in. This photographer came in saying, Parisi, take your picture, take your picture. And he had a moustache and glasses, and his hair swept back. And he went around the whole restaurant, like laying on the floor and doing angle shots of people, giving them this like plastic card, and then he'd go to another table, take some more, then go and take the card off the people he'd just given, because he only had one card, and give it to someone. And suddenly we realised that it was Paul doing it all. And he'd gone upstairs, he'd put this moustache on, glasses, swept his hair back, and none of us recognised him. And it was hilarious, you know, he just had a scream, you know. And then he went back upstairs, and he came to, and there was a couple of people on our table too, you know, besides us, who didn't recognise him, you know. And they kept saying, where's Paul? And we were saying, I don't know, you know. And then this photographer left the room, it was, you know, Paul, and went back upstairs, combed his hair down, took the glasses off and moustache, and came and sat down. And then these people that were with us were just telling him about this mad photographer that had just been around, you know. It was a scream, and it was, somebody took a picture of him in that disguise. Yeah, this is only about 19 or something, you know, and he's just found that picture and used it on the collage. But it isn't somebody else, you know.
Don't say that, nobody knows me feelings.
Well, the Paul is Dead story was started by a DJ in America. And, you know, we were as interested as anyone else, so we pulled out all the albums and looked at all the clues, like the Black Rose and the Car on Abbey Road and, you know, this and that, everything they were saying at the time. And if you read it that way, it worked out, you see. A lot of it was worked out really well, so if you put all these clues together, it actually said what someone else had made up. And then we had a terrible problem because, you know, we thought, well, how do we counteract this? Let's do a photo. We couldn't do a photo because they say, no, it's not Paul. It's the clone. You see, the problem we had was that everything we did, everybody read so much into it, you see. I mean, if we'd have been that bright, we wouldn't have been playing music, we'd have been on the moon.
Derek Taylor.
Yeah, sure.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Now listen, I'll tell you, McCartney is alive. Is alive, apart from be alive. Don't worry about their questions, it's all coincidence. Paul McCartney isn't dead, and the only proof we have that he's alive at this point is that he is. You don't have to do any more than that to prove you're alive, except be alive.
Why the preoccupation with death and exotic symbolisms of death?
I'm aware of any preoccupation with death or any symbolism. These are not things that we are aware of. It's coincidental, unless there somewhere deep down there's a death wish. I don't know. That could be so. Everyone's uptight about this. It's a negative trip. This is. It's a very bad trip for everyone. It's death, and it doesn't have any point. It doesn't have any purpose. It's a death trip, and it's no good and lead you into nothing.
You know, it's like, in fact, even now you just write some lyrics, and people, you know, have their version of what it means.
Can't keep a secret. Were there any of the on the rumor about Paul being dead?
We've been through all this one before.
About the rumor?
About Paul being dead? I don't know where that started. That was balmy, you know.
Why?
I don't know where it was. I don't know. You know as much about it as me.
Were any of those things that on the album that they said were on the album?
Which, name a few.
List of clues or...
No, that was bullshit. The whole thing was made up.
No real tricks to put that out.
No, we haven't put anything like that. We put like tit 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 in girl. And just, I don't remember. It would be things like a beat missing or something like that, see if anybody noticed. More things like that, you know. I don't remember any. I know we used to have a few things, but nothing that could be interpreted like that.
Why do you think something like that whole death thing would happen?
Yeah, because people have got nothing better to do than study Bibles and make myths about it and study, you know, rocks and make stories about how people used to live and all that, you know. It's just something to do for them. They live vicariously.
The conspiracy theory, there's been clues, like, is it Sgt. Pepper, you play it backwards?
What about the rumor that was going around one time that you had died and there was a double standing in for you?
It's not true. I'm almost alive. Almost alive.
And you had the crash. The car was completely destroyed, you know. They died. Do you understand this? And now they're all dead. the Beatles died forever, you know? Maybe there's only Ringo Starr.
I was continually being asked if he was alive and so on. A lot of things added up. People, in fact, I started getting letters from people outlining how obvious it was that Paul was dead. You know, I began to believe it myself. The fact that on Pepper, on the back, he was the only one of the four of them to be not facing the camera. His back was turned to the camera. And also in the front of the cover, he was wearing a black buttonhole and Wallace was wearing a white or a red one. Little things like that. People were sort of reading and saying, oh, well, it's obvious that he's died and the boys are covering it up. Well, if he was dead, he had a jolly good impersonator working for him because, you know, this actually happened one afternoon when Paul was round at my place playing the piano and we were having tea. And we had a big laugh about it. But it wasn't so much of a laugh when you were woken at 3 in the morning from some little girl in Wisconsin saying, please, can you tell me if Paul really is alive? Don't say he's dead. Please don't say he's dead.
I Am the Walrus sparked a lot of controversy and fueled the conspiracy theory that was Paul McCartney's death and replacement with a Paul McCartney look-alike.
There has been a great deal of ridiculous speculation about that song over the years. I mean, it's really taken on a life or a mythology of its own. You know, it's sort of like the Paul is dead thing, or who was the walrus.
I mean, there are people that think that Paul McCartney was in Wings.
If there was any kind of coincidental connection between any of these things, which it sounds as though there is, you know, I must admit I'm as convinced as anybody could be.
Cab drivers asked me 2 things. Are you going to play together again? How's your immigration? And in what form we play together again, I don't know. It's been a physical impossibility for the 4 of us to be in one place at one time. The Beatles' name will continue, no doubt, so they exist, but they don't work together anymore.
You didn't talk to Harrison or Ringo Starr?
No. Harrison's like a hermit, and Ringo's under contract to do his book.
And Yoko Ono?
Yoko Ono under contract, likewise.
It must be very difficult to do the definitive John Lennon book without talking to Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Yoko Ono.
You have to remember that sources are only as good as they are willing to be forthcoming and frank.
Forget about him. He's playing on your mind. You don't need him. Don't even talk about him.
You heard the testimony of an expert that those things on those records had to be deliberately planted and could not be the result of accident. Now, do you still say they were an accident?
You've asked me this question 3 times as to whether I think they're an accident, and I've explained. Some of them are accidental, some of them are not there, some of them are there, but are not necessarily what they are heard to be.
What about I Buried Paul? Is it there?
It sounds like it is to me, yes. It sounds like John is saying I Buried Paul.
What about Turn Me On, Dead Man?
Turn Me On, Dead Man. I couldn't hear that myself.
So you say it is not there?
I couldn't hear it.
What about the word miss him, miss him, miss him? You are, as you have put it, a very close friend of Paul McCartney.
I am.
Mike McGear, Paul's brother.
Actually, yes, he died in an earthquake in Mexico in 1917.
And it was American DJs, and I was rung up by a fellow at our office. Said, what do you want to do, Paul? There's a rumour in America, you're dead. I said, not a lot I can do to that, really, is it? Sounds like good publicity to me. I said, you know, tell them I'm not. That's all I could do, you know. But people gave me real funny looks after that, so I had to just have a bit of fun with that. I said, I'm not actually him, I am a double.
One Indian MP accused this place of being an espionage centre. You, in fact, of being a spy for the West.
Well, don't tell anyone. It's true.
It is.
We're spies, yes. The 4 of us have been spies. Actually, I'm a reporter, and I joined the Beatles for that very reason. But the story's out next week in the paper, which will be nameless.
Anyway, all of the things that have been, you know, that have made these rumours, to my mind, have very ordinary logical explanations. To the people's minds who prefer to think of them as rumours, then I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to spoil their fantasy. You know, you can think of it like that if you like. However, if the end result, if the conclusion you reach is that I'm dead, then you're wrong. Because I'm alive and living in Scotland.
Hello Goodbye always seemed a very simple song. What was it actually about?
It was about you say yes, I say no, you know, the old dilemma. I say hello and you say goodbye. Why can't we get on, girl, baby? I mean, that's all it was about.